plenty of seats here at the front. Don't be shy. Brilliant. Yeah. Hello, everyone. How does that sound if I do a sound check? Can you all hear me? Too loud? No, fine. Yeah, okay. Brilliant.
Is that one? I don't think it's on.
No, it is on. It is on. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you all here today at the Data Lab, at this Data Lab community event. Thank you so much for coming along. I hope you enjoyed the pizza and the beer and the beverages, etc. My name's Marianne Dunbar. I work at the Data Lab. I'm the manager of the Data Lab Academy, so I know quite a few of you here today, especially the students who have been here doing CV reviews today. So we are really delighted to have a fantastic topic for today's meetup. We are lucky to have Chris Westlake, who is the 2024 Tableau Iron Viz champion, who's joining us for a deep dive into data visualization techniques, which I am really excited about. Before we get going with that, just a bit of housekeeping. There is no fire alarm planned. We are going to have Chris's presentation that will be followed by some questions, your opportunity to ask questions, and I'm sure you'll have loads of questions. If you would like to post about the event today and share the great story that you're about to see, please do so on the Data Lab community. I just want to say a nice hello to everyone online. I forgot about our other audience who are joining us online. So this year marks the Data Lab's 10th anniversary, and our meetups are part of a series of events to celebrate that. So I'd like to introduce my colleague, Manolo Perez, who's going to tell you all about that.
I don't think I need that. Hello, everyone, and thank you. My name is Manolo Perez. I'm the Director of Operations and Finance at Data Lab. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we are Scotland's Innovation Centre for Data and AI. And our vision is to build a fairer and more equitable society where the responsible use of data and AI empowers every individual to thrive. I'm delighted to have you all here. And as Marianne said, this is part of our 10th anniversary celebrations. In the lead up to this landmark event anniversary, we've been looking and reflected on what we have achieved today. I'm delighted to say that all our activities since 2014 have supported the generation of over £212 million of additional revenue, and also the creation of 1,500 jobs in data and AI, contributing to the Scottish economy. We are proud to have supported over 3,000 businesses in harnessing their data, and also our community platform that we launched 4 years ago has over 6,000 members from over 80 countries. And through this community, we run a series of events all year round, like this one today. We've also funded over 1,000 students across various Scottish universities in data and AI related MSc programs. We've recently launched our 24-25 cohort. Some of these students are here with us today. And I'm delighted that we've also have funded 146 students here in Edinburgh, giving them the opportunity to undertake a fully funded course, and also being part of our student program support program. So a special welcome to all the students here today, whether you are a new student or you are part of our alumni, and we hope that you have many more opportunities like this one to attend these networking events. We look forward to the next 10 years, and we're very excited about driving innovation, community building, talent, and skills To commemorate our 10th anniversary, we've run a series of events across the country. We had over 500 attendees, and we visited the cities of Aberdeen, Dundee, Inverness, and Glasgow. And today, to end that roadshow, we're here with you in Edinburgh. Our celebrations for this anniversary will culminate in Data Fest, which is the leading AI and data conference in Scotland. It will be held at the Assembly Rooms from the 12th to the 13th of May. I hope to see you all there. The tickets are for sale, so make sure that you grab one. This is a must-attend event, and it attracts data and AI innovators, enthusiasts, and thought leaders, as well as companies, academia, and students. So I'm delighted to have you all here. I hope you have a fantastic time and you enjoy the talk. And if you have any more questions about the work that we do at the Data Lab, please find me after the event. Okay, thank you and enjoy.
Thank you so much, Manolo. So this is the exciting bit. I have the pleasure of introducing Chris Westlake, who's the 2024 Tableau Iron Viz champion and a data visualization expert. So this is exciting. Chris.
Thank you. Hi, thanks all for coming, for having me here, for joining online. It's really exciting to see so many people here. What I want to do today is really talk about the power of data visualization. But before we get into that, a bit about me. By day, I work at JLL, which is a property management company. We've got offices around the world, one here in Edinburgh. I work on a client account as a business intelligence specialist, which basically means that I help people see, understand, and crucially act upon their data. Anything that happens within a building goes through one of my dashboards that I build, whether it's a light bulb goes out or when a certain number of people go into a bathroom so that it needs cleaning, it will trigger something on one of my dashboards. Or a bit of a bigger problem that we've had recently, a CEO gets stuck in a lift. It's not great. By night, I'm a Tableau Public Ambassador. I co-lead the Scotland Tableau user group, and I also run a website and a blog called westlakeanalytics.com. And as was mentioned earlier this year, I won Tableau's data visualization competition, Iron Viz, which is the biggest data visualization competition in the world. You'll notice that I've already mentioned Tableau quite a few times. I'm aware that not everybody here uses Tableau, necessarily likes Tableau. I want to try and make this as tool agnostic as I can. If you do hear me going into Tableau a bit too much and talking about Tableau this, Tableau that, just put your hand up and remind me that this is a data viz talk, not a Tableau talk. So I want to go right back to the start and think about why we visualize data. What's wrong with just a table of numbers? Why do we take it that step further? And to do that, I want us to think about how we experience the world. We have 5 senses: sight and the other 4. And I want to ask you, what % of the world, of your experiences in the world, do you think you experience through sight? Just shout out some numbers.
98%.
98? Anybody else? 40, 50? So it's actually 90% of everything that we experience through our vision, which we're all fairly good at maths here, means that those other 4 of hearing, touch, taste, and smell, sad that I need a slide to remind me what they are, is just 10% of what we experience. And if we experience that much of our world through sight, what does a picture do to our processing speed? Studies have shown that we process pictures up to 60,000 times faster than we can process a list of words or a list of numbers. But to put this another way, this study was done a number of years ago, and 100 people were given this text that you're seeing on the screen and told to remember as much of it as they could, and 24 hours later, they were asked to repeat it back. I'll read it to you now. Tyrannosaurus rex was one of the largest meat-eating dinosaurs ever to stomp prehistoric soil. Everything about this ferocious predator, from a thick, heavy skull to a 4-foot-long jaw, was designed for maximum bone-crunching action. 24 hours later, if I came back here tomorrow afternoon and asked you to repeat that sentence, how much of it do you think you'd be able to recall? Not very much. So in this study, people could recall about 10%. The same thing was done with the same text, but adding a not very accurate image above it. And 24 hours after being presented with this, these people could recall 65%. So you see the huge implication that just adding a picture has on our ability to remember information. And if we take that one step further and we add a really bright background and a banner saying "Beware the T-Rex," suddenly that recall goes up to 82%. It's the same text. It's the same 2 very long sentences that are really hard to remember on their own, but by providing those visual prompts, you're more likely to remember that information. So can we do the same thing with data? I've got a grid here of 100 numbers, which hopefully you can read at the back. If I asked you how many 9s there are in this picture, have a go and put your hand up when you've worked it out. This will also tell me how far back I can actually see the screen. Got a couple.
17.
Cool. Brilliant. So that was 30, 40 seconds. How about now? It becomes a lot easier. And we can make it even easier. And if we use data visualization, the answer can be there for us immediately. And not only tell us how many 9s, but also tell us that there are more 9s in that grid than any other number. Which is fine for a grid of just plain numbers. But what about when we've got, oh, missed a step, sorry. So what we've done there is looked at pre-attentive attributes. So things that make certain bits of information stick out to us more than others. These are things like length, like we saw with that bar chart. Width is another one. Orientation. I have a collection of pens that I keep on my desk, and if one of them is out of line, it sticks out like a sore thumb. And yeah, that idea of things not being straight, not being in line, really does resonate with us. Shape. Size, we saw with the 9s. And color, we saw there as well. But what about if we have a grid of real numbers? Francis Anscombe did this experiment in the 1970s to prove that putting data in a chart was more effective than having the data listed out like this. Here you can see 4 sets of 11 coordinates, x and y. Each of these has the same mean of x, the same mean of y, the same variance of x, and the same variance of y. They have the same correlation between x and y, and the same linear regression line. How often do you look at data and just quote these sort of summary statistics and not really go that much deeper into it? I know in my statistics degree we definitely did a lot of that. But what if we visualize these? Let's take that first one, and you see 11 dots just randomly scattered on a grid, which, when we looked at that table, didn't look too different from the second one. Or the third. You probably wouldn't have noticed that that one was out of the ordinary because the x's are so in line, and you kind of get lost with that y column. And then probably the easiest one to notice that's a little bit different because of this 19 in the row of x's, the fourth one. So clearly, just giving you a table of numbers isn't going to do much for how you can interpret data. But what about if we use this with real data? The data that I want to use comes from the United Nations, who have 17 Sustainable Development Goals that they introduced in 2015 to try and make the world a better place. And these touch every aspect of every person's life across the world. And the one that I want us to focus on is the second one, the goal of zero hunger. They ambitiously, perhaps, said that they wanted to eradicate undernourishment in the world by 2030. So let's see how they got on. The data goes up to 2021, which is a bit outdated at this point, but hopefully there's still stuff that we can gain from this. Here, I've got a table of undernourishment rates by year, from the year 2000 to the year 2021. What can you tell me about these numbers? They're going down, and then up. But you can't really tell that much about the kind of overall picture. You know that it's in general going down and maybe increasing towards the end. But what about if we show it like this? You can see that after 2008, which is this, have I got that's not really working. About this point here is the financial crisis in 2008, where you see that progress started to slow drastically. But maybe we can go a step further, and rather than relying on your audience to interpret that data themselves, to know that there was a global financial crisis in 2008, maybe we can just tell them. So here I've split that chart up into three. The first section before 2008, the middle section between 2008 and 2015, and then really calling out when this goal came into action. Of course, you've also got a fourth data point here where that data started increasing again, which is the result of the COVID-19 pandemic. But our world isn't linear. Not everywhere in the world has the same rate of undernourishment. So let's break this down and split the world up into 7 different regions. Just looking at the most recent data that we have, which region has the highest rate of undernourishment there? The one on the right. Yeah, sub-Saharan Africa. And it was interesting to see all of your eyes kind of started at that far end and worked your way across, eventually getting to the right answer. If we display this as a bar chart, it's a lot easier to tell which one has the highest. But what about the region that has the 5th highest? Because we've displayed this data in alphabetical order, it's really hard to tell which one goes in which order. And really displaying stuff in alphabetical order when it comes to regions of the world is utterly pointless. If you picture a list of countries, you probably don't picture them in alphabetical order or even in a list at all. You tend to think of them more as a map. We're not going to do a map, but we are going to sort them from biggest to smallest, and you can immediately see that the 5th largest rate of undernourishment comes in Oceania. But data like this, even this, which is a perfectly good bar chart, can be a little bit misleading. We've got our biggest possible number here as this 22.2, but we know that there are a lot more people than that in sub-Saharan Africa. So let's celebrate the progress that has been made. Let's celebrate how much of that continent has enough food to survive. By adding this reference point and filling those bars up towards 100%, you can see that extra 78% that we're missing before. This does have a slight drawback with this, because now you've lost the urgency of that 22.2%, which is still a massive number. We can drill further into this. So rather than just looking at sub-Saharan Africa or any of the other regions as a whole, I've pulled out here the 44 countries that make up that one region. And we've got 2 columns of data, one looking at 2001 and the other 2021. What can you tell me about whether each country has increased or decreased? Or a slightly different question, which country has increased or decreased the most? You probably don't even know where to begin. By plotting this, it's a lot of data, and I should have thought about how big this room was going to be. But hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing here. By plotting this on a dumbbell chart, you can see that you've got those 2 points connected by a line. But the one that we're really interested in when we're talking about progress is the latest data point. So let's make that the color, push everything else into the background, and make it slightly bigger as well. Here you can see pretty immediately that biggest line showing the biggest decrease is at the top, Angola. But which country has the highest rate of undernourishment here in 2021? Which country has the lowest, or the fifth lowest? Again, you're starting to scan down that left-hand side and try and work out which one's the smallest, and then count back. So let's put them in order. And suddenly you can see all of those rates in order. You know that the highest rate of undernourishment is Madagascar here at the bottom with just over 50%. And at the top, you've got countries like Seychelles, Ghana, and Senegal. But we're talking about undernourishment rising and falling, but we're showing it here going from left to right. Maybe flipping this axis around and showing it this way is a bit more intuitive. I'll leave that there for just now, and I'll convince you a bit later. This is all pretty dark stuff, looking at undernourishment, but maybe there's something that we can do to improve it. What has an impact on undernourishment around the world? Maybe education. Here again, we've tried to cram in far too many numbers onto one page, and you're overwhelmed with the result. We're looking at that undernourishment rate in the right-hand column of each one, and an education index in the left-hand column. That education index is made up of the expected years of schooling that somebody in that country would have before the age of 21, and also the actual amount of schooling that they'll have in that time. You clearly can't make out any trends between this at all. So let's put it on a chart. We've again got undernourishment on that left chart, the same as we had on the last one, creating that reference point that you know that you expect. And we've also got that global education index along the bottom, going from 0 with the least education to 1 with the most. What can you tell me about this data now? As we increase the quality of education, the rate of undernourishment falls. But like we had with an earlier example, we maybe need to ask whether it's falling quite that much. We know that undernourishment percentage could go up to 100%. Thankfully it doesn't. But adding that in as a reference, there's maybe a slightly less connection between those two, but still a valuable connection all the same. We were also looking at sub-Saharan Africa, and what we can't see here is where those countries sit on this chart. So let's highlight them. Here you can see that very few of those sub-Saharan African countries reach the pinnacle of the Global Education Index. Maybe improving their education quality will bring undernourishment down. So what I've done there is taken a whole load of spreadsheets, a whole load of data that I pulled in that format from the UN website, and I've turned it into charts. And this got me thinking, can AI do this? There's a team at JLL that are currently working on producing an AI system so that our clients can go in, ask questions that they might want to, like how many people are attending offices in this location, in this country, and it will show them not only the overall number that we'd expect an AI tool to do, but it's also building them a chart. It's giving them a bar chart showing them how the different offices within that region that they've asked about, how many people are attending those offices, a bar per office. And I thought that's really cool, but my bars are interactive. I can hover, I can click, I can filter, but so can theirs. So where's the value that we can add that AI possibly can't? When I told you about myself and my job, I said that I help people see their data, which we've just looked at. I help people understand their data, which we've done as well. But the real value of what I do is helping people act on their data. And I do that through a story. I've got a quote here by Daniel Kahneman, who's the author of Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a brilliant book. If you haven't read it, I'd highly recommend it. He says that no one ever made a decision because of a number. They need a story. By adding that narrative to your data, so not just displaying a bar chart, but really telling the story behind the bar chart, like we started to do with the annotations on that first chart, we can really convince our users to act on what they're doing. And that's something that AI can't do, because AI doesn't understand the connection that we have with the data. So let's look at this and tell the story. This is a visualization that I built last year to enter the Iron Viz competition. With Iron Viz, each year people are invited to submit a visualization that gets judged against analysis, design, and storytelling. Each year, Tableau give a theme, and the theme this year was love. Hunger is quite a strange place to end up from a theme of love. I started out by talking about my love for food. I love cooking food, I love eating food, and I love sharing food. And here are 6 of my favorite recipes to cook. This tree map is a chart type that we didn't talk about. It's probably not the most reliable way of showing this data, and it possibly could have been a bar chart. You can't really tell what proportion of each recipe uses each ingredient that's represented by one of these boxes, or the overall food group that denotes the color. What you can tell is that when you're roasting a chicken, most of it is going to be protein and chicken. But then as you come further down this chart, the reality of the visualization starts to hit you. While I enjoy eating these recipes, this massive number, nearly 740 million people in the world, don't have enough food to live. By turning that high-level number that we saw before, the 9.3% in 2021, into a real number that reflects the amount of people in the world that categorizes, we really drive an empathetic reaction and encourage people to feel something when they're looking at this data. We then have this trend chart that we looked at before, and then we ask, where is there undernourishment? In here, I've not only got those bars filling up to 100% that we looked at before, but I've also copied the trend chart from above and split it out by region. Each one of these, you can see the line for all the regions, with the region that we're focusing on in that section highlighted in green. From just the 2.5% bar for Eastern and Southeastern Asia, you wouldn't have known that actually in the last 20 years, that rate's dropped from over 1/8. By adding that additional context, we really bring the story to life. By clicking on one of these boxes, you can drill in, if it lets you. Sorry. Maybe. Sorry. Go back to full screen. By clicking on the box, it should open up that chart of countries that we had before. And here you can start to see that picture of which countries have increased in those 20 years and which have decreased, because looking at that overall line chart, again, you're going to be missing things. And for each of these, you also have the ability to see how it performed year on year. Coming further down, we asked, how can we end undernourishment? Here, I looked at 3 ways, 3 things that might impact the rate of undernourishment: education, gender equality, and climate change. And again, you can expand the chart and you get these annotations start to appear. You can also highlight the different regions. So let's look at Europe and Northern America. Maybe unsurprisingly, they all feature in that bottom right portion of our chart. The theme I said for this visualization was love, so I had to somehow get back to that. And what is there in this that makes my heart full? We're talking about 740 million people, 10 times the number of people in the UK, that go without food every single day. And what I love about this topic is that it really shows progress. 2.5% is the lowest number that the UN will release for this data because it's hard to survey everyone in the world. But you can see that 23 countries in those 20 years that we looked at have reduced their undernourishment to below that 2.5% group, taking that number up to 57. And a further 70 countries made progress towards that point. And finally, I finished the visualization with a call to action, asking people to donate and really pleading with people that together we can work towards a world where undernourishment is a thing of the past. So hopefully you can see that that's an example of how you go from data, from a table of data, to a visualization, to telling a story with it. I submitted that and forgot about it for 2 months. And then I got an email saying that I was in the final of the Iron Viz competition. This was huge. About 300 people enter this competition every year, and 3 are chosen as finalists. And the prize for being a finalist is to stand on that very small stage in front of about 10,000 people, build a data visualization live in front of them in 20 minutes, and then present it back with a 3-minute story. I want to play that story for you, just so that you can see a slightly more uplifting version of this process. The data here comes from IMDb, and it looks at the 250 most voted for TV shows on IMDb's platform. Can we get sound? Sorry. I forgot this was... I can skip it if not.
Maybe one for Alan. Is this sound on the laptop?
Yeah.
If it's possible. I think that's going to be no.
That's fine.
What I would maybe do is just play it out on the laptop as loud as you can.
What? I can talk through it, and that's okay. I can do it live. Yep. Okay, slight improvisation. Let me find the dashboard. So we'll also test my memory. So thanks for bearing with me there. So we've got a dashboard here that looks at the 250 most voted for shows on the IMDb platform. You can see in the top right that Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad both have a really high number of votes and a high average rating. And there's a lot clumped down here. If we change the vertical axis from looking at the number of votes to the number of episodes, we start to see that those two don't stand out quite so much. We can also use this to zoom in on shows with the highest rating, those with a rating of 9 out of 10 or higher. And here there's one show that stands out above the others, The Office, the US version. Hands up, who's a fan? Excellent. In the US, everyone was a fan. Let's click on it and have a closer look. By clicking, you see this button in the bottom right starts to appear, and we can go into the next step of the visual, which looks at the rating of every episode within The Office, going from the first season, where the ratings were a little bit lower, to the final season, where the ratings peaked, with the final episode being a rating of 9.8 out of 10. We can also notice that the ratings start to drop around about here after season 7. So let's see if the cast can help us work out why. In here, we've got a list of the cast members, and hovering on each of them shows you which episodes they featured in the most. And if we hover on Steve Carell, we see that he disappears from the show at the end of season 7, just as the ratings declined. But where did he go after The Office? And what did he achieve? Here, we've got Steve Carell's career in TV outlined. We can see The Office really dominated his career between the years 2005 and 2011, and then he had quite a big gap from TV, hardly appearing at all until starring in Space Force. But where was he in that gap? I think when we're looking at data, we tend to focus on what's in front of us, and we often skip over the gaps like this one. By looking at his career awards, we see that Steve Carell did disappear from television, but in that time, he won and was nominated for a lot of film awards. Now, only about half of you put your hands up when I asked you if you'd watched The Office. What is there in this for the rest of you? Well, if we go back to the start, you can see that this will work with any of those 250 shows. Maybe you want to know what Bryan Cranston's career looked like before Breaking Bad. There's a lot that I didn't realize he'd done. Or when The Simpsons started to not be so good. With this dashboard, you can. So please have a look at it when you get home, and yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. So I'm sorry that the video didn't work. Definitely would have given me a break and you a break from listening to me talk. But in summary, what I really want you to take away from this is that people see data. They hear statistics, but we feel stories. So next time you're representing data, don't just give it in a tabular format. Don't just quote the numbers. Tell the story behind it and really encourage people to engage with that story through what you can tell them about that data. I mentioned that I'm a co-lead of the Scotland Tableau user group. We've got an event coming up in 2 weeks' time on the 10th of December at 4:30, just the other side of Princes Street, I guess, other end of Princes Street. We'll have drinks and pizza. Come along and see what we're doing. We've got a couple of great talks coming up and also an opportunity to kind of review visualizations that we've picked out to kind of look at what works and what doesn't work. So it'll be nice and engaging and practical as well. I also mentioned my website. Go and have a look at that. If you're interested in what I do, I share blog posts and tutorials and things. If you do use Tableau, reach out to me and maybe I can help you. Or if you want advice on how to be better at visualizing data generally, get in touch with me through the contact page. Or on X, I need to get rid of the bird, LinkedIn, and my website. Thank you for having me. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was fantastic. What strikes me is how much elegance there is in beautifully executed data visualization. Oh, I've not got my mic on. Oh no, sorry, did you hear all that? Just elegance and data visualization. So this is your opportunity to ask Chris some questions. Oh, would you mind standing? And because this is a recorded event, it's better for our audience.
Even if the camera's behind the frame. I'm wondering, linking to what you started with actually, how you evaluate your different visualizations in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, and actually information extraction. Even if people say, yeah, they like it, doesn't mean actually it's better or that it works. And how you also avoid these sort of perceptual biases that can arise from distorted versions. Not necessarily deliberate misinformation, but just the way people process information visually.
Yeah, we all approach data with that bias, right? We've got our own opinions and views of the world. And I think the main thing that kind of springs to mind about your question is putting it into context. So ensuring that you always show the data that maybe isn't there, like we did with that 22% where it looked like a huge bar. we can really shrink that down and put it into the context of what 100% would look like, so that we're not blowing that data out of proportion. In terms of what visuals work and don't work, I like to show my stuff to my wife, who is not a data person at all, and really wouldn't understand a table of numbers. And if she can get something from it, I kind of deem it good enough. Does that sort of answer the question?
Earlier you were showing how there was a sort of a percentage improvement in recall and so on. Do you actually use metrics of any sort to evaluate these things, or is it?
Not really. I wish we did. I wish there was kind of a reliable way to do that, but yeah, not personally. Sorry.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, over here, Stephen. If you wouldn't mind standing up to give your question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, what are the biggest faux pas for visualizations? Is it using pie charts, or are there other things that you see and it's like, oh no?
They're definitely pie charts. I was running a workshop last week, and somebody came up with this 3D pie chart where all of the numbers were over 70. I was like over 70%, looking at who people were most likely to back in an election. So it was, would you back this person? Would you back this person? Would you back this person? And the smallest number, because it was a 3D tilted bar chart, it looked like the smallest number was biggest because it was the brightest color and closest to you. And I think, yeah, pie charts are a big no-no, and so is 3D stuff. Yeah, I think color can also be a big faux pas. I often say that if everything's colored, nothing's colored. You kind of need to use color carefully to really highlight the information that's important that you want people to be looking at, while not using it to mislead. It's kind of a fine line.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think we really struggle because we have to use our clients' like color palette matching their branding, and that's like a bit of a struggle because
Always.
Yeah.
It's like they give you two colors. And
yeah, green and blue. And,
yeah, completely.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else?
Hi. Hi. Thanks for the presentation. Speaking of stories and journeys, how do you start your journey anytime you have to create a new visualization? Can you take us through that process?
Yeah, so I always start with Post-it notes. So I like to kind of plan out my stories like a Pixar movie. So you see in every Pixar movie and other films and books as well, you start with every day something happens. Take Harry Potter. Every day he lived in a cupboard under the stairs until one day he found out he was a wizard. And then he found out about his real past, who his parents were, who Voldemort was, until he had to defeat Voldemort, which is the real kind of aha moment of that story. And then you reach the climax and everything kind of wraps up and becomes finished. And I tend to think about data stories in the same sort of way. So you start with a really calm kind of basic insight, like every day I like cooking food, but not everybody has that luxury. Not everybody can. And then you build up to the solution that we can have where we can improve education, gender equality, and maybe even climate change to really bring that back down to earth. And the way that I start is writing out these kind of rough ideas on Post-it notes and putting them on a wall and just moving them around until the story kind of takes shape. And once I know the points that I want to hit in that story, I can then start looking for data and kind of formatting that data in the way that will work, and then finally thinking about the charts. So I think the visualizing the data really does come at the end of the journey for me. Does that help?
Perfect, yeah. That's extreme clarity. Thank you.
Oh, we've got some questions behind you, Stephen.
Yeah, there you go. Do I need to stand up as well? Okay. Sorry, a bit tired. Yeah, thanks for the inspiring talk. I was wondering about let's say what's happening in the background in some sense. So I wonder your personal experiences on using maybe different languages, programming languages attached to the Tableau, for instance. Did you have any experience on making communication with R or Python with Tableau? Is there any thought on it?
I used R in my degree and honestly couldn't get away from it quick enough. I was really relieved when I found something like Tableau that could help me analyze and visualize data without having to write a single line of code. I know that's probably not the answer that you were hoping for. I do some data prep in SQL and Databricks. I've never touched Python. But yeah, I find SQL is kind of the easiest to understand and for me to get my non-programming brain around.
Okay, thanks.
Just another question just behind you.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Hi there. All right, my question is this. When you're on a project, data visualization project, how do you measure timescales for reverting back to your clients?
That is a tricky one. So I tend to do everything on kind of 2-week sprint basis. So I'll get requirements from a client and then 2 weeks later I want to have a minimum viable product that I can go back to them and say, fundamentally, does this do what you want it to? And that product won't look great. It won't be the finished job at all, but it will be a start. And from there, they can then start refining the requirements that they've given me to really start nailing home what they want to know from the project, what they want to be included. If it's a dashboard, what filters they need in there, what data they want included, what data they want excluded, all of these sorts of things. So I think in general, kind of my work projects will take about 2 months, 3 months of that kind of back and forth process, but it really depends on the size.
How many interesting and compelling stories do you find in your day-to-day job as a property administrator?
Well, it's not IMDb data. It's harder, but there's, I think one example that we found recently was a building in Hong Kong where we noticed that work orders, which is what people raise when something's not right in a building, were being raised on every morning at 8 a.m. because a room or an entire floor needed cleaning. And we kind of looked at this and thought, well, why does that floor need cleaning at 8 in the morning when nobody's been in it overnight? And that's when we dug into this and found that this had been going on for about 3 years. Nobody had really questioned it, but the cleaners didn't have access to that floor overnight. So it was never being cleaned overnight. So we thought, well, let's just give the cleaners access and really resolve that issue. It's one example of a story from just a couple of weeks ago. Doesn't happen that often or that kind of exciting. I'm talking about cleaning a floor isn't exciting anyway.
Yeah, thank you. Very interested. I just had a question that I'm sure you've experienced and many people have experienced who work on creating kind of these beautiful dashboards, reports, storytelling, and present them to people, and you're met with, can I get this in an Excel spreadsheet? Or, you know, the kind of...
all the time.
I think people kind of want to create their own story sometimes.
Yep.
But how do you work with clients in, I guess, part of that process in shaping a story that is a story they're interested in and a story that they want to hear?
I think definitely pushing back on it in the first instance and kind of finding out what they want to do with their spreadsheet and kind of working out whether that question is answered in your visualization, and if it is, maybe you need to tweak the way that you're showing that or how easy it is. So maybe they want to see that kind of row level data that they just can't access. So is there a way that you can build in that functionality to your report? A lot of the time, people who are coming to you and asking for that data aren't going to be swayed. They're not going to be put off having that data. So I almost, at work definitely, I take the path of least resistance and just give it to them, but then really look at what they do with it so that next time I can try and fulfill that requirement that they have. And I find that kind of almost letting them do their thing is a much better way of getting them to communicate what they want from you.
So we've got time for one more. Last chance saloon. Anyone?
Thanks. So we use Tableau a lot, and we have a lot of debates about whether it's the best thing to use. So I was just wondering what you think are kind of the pros and cons over other tools, so say Power BI, for example. Or?
This is a question that I get asked a lot, and there's a lot out there kind of for both sides. I'd say that the best thing about Tableau and why I got really interested in Tableau is the community. As you use Tableau and kind of if you come up with a problem with Tableau and you Google that problem, you can always find something on the forums that'll at least get you 90% of the way towards solving it, which you know because you use Tableau. You don't get that with Power BI. You've got kind of, I don't know, 120 Tableau ambassadors around the world who are really passionate about data visualization and this product in particular, who are really keen to share their learning and kind of go the extra mile to help everybody kind of go on that journey with them. And I think that, for me, is the most compelling argument for Tableau against anything else.
Okay, thank you so much, Chris. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you very much for your time. You're a very, very well-deserved Data Viz prize winner. Thank you so much. This is the opportunity for you, the audience, to tell us about anything that's going on, a meetup or anything, any news that you'd like to share. So you've got a few seconds, I think it might be 30, to share. Anything? Should I have put my mic on? Did you hear me? Yeah. So I think in that case, that brings us towards the end of our event today. Thank you again, Chris. Thank you for the audience. Thank you for some really fantastic questions. That was really brilliant. That made my job a lot easier. And just to remind you that DataFest is coming. It's next May. Get your tickets now and sign up. I think we'll be leaking information as we go into the new year about some of the speakers that will be there and all the other events. So that's going to be the highlight of our 10th anniversary celebrations. Also, please join the community. I think most of you are on the community. Certainly all of our students should be. Please join the community because there's lots of information there. There's lots of ways to get connected, stay connected, events going on, jobs, mentoring, lots of other things, interest groups. So that is a place to be if you're interested in data. And we have a data visualization group there too. So if that's your thing, then go there. So that is all we have to say. Thank you so much for being a fantastic audience. I hope you've enjoyed the session. I certainly have. Thank you very much. See you at the next one.